Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another SoCast webinar. It is our May edition. As I said a few minutes ago, I can hardly believe it's May already. I don't know if it's working from home for so long or what it is, but half the year is almost gone, and it seems like just yesterday it was Christmas. So I want to welcome you all again to Preparing to Thrive in the Post-COVID World: Lessons Learned from the Crisis. We're very excited about this webinar. We hope there's a lot of great information for you. There's a ton of it today. So let's get right into it. There's so much. I'm almost already thinking about a follow-up to this, so we'll keep you posted on that. But let's get right into it, and welcome to all of you. So, as always, a little bit of housekeeping before we move forward. We encourage you, please ask my colleague Shay. She's moderating any questions. You can do that by accessing the GoToMeeting sidebar there and ask some questions. We will do our best to answer them. There won't be any live QA or anything like that, but we will definitely take those away and get back to you in the next 24 hours if Shay can't get you the answer immediately. So please feel free to ask us questions, provide us with your feedback. And we also encourage you to share any thoughts out to our Twitter handle @SoCast and hashtag us with @DigitalDollars. We'd love to hear your feedback. We'd love to hear positive, negative, really anything. We want to make sure that these webinars are good value for everybody, all of our partners and all of our potential partners, or even if you're just sort of looking to learn new things, we're happy to share our knowledge and hope you take away a few nuggets for your team. My name is Eric Eisen. I am your host. I head up sales and marketing here at SoCast. Webinars are one of my favorite things to do, and I hope you enjoy them as well. So let's talk about a little bit about what we'll be covering today. It's a pretty dark screen there. It's a pretty dark topic, but we're hoping that there's some light at the end of the tunnel. So today we're going to be talking a little bit about what's happening in the current world given COVID. Some we know, some we don't, but let's go through that together. Secondly, let's talk a little bit about embracing working from home, and I'll put that in more context when we get to that section. Lastly, I love a good alliteration. So COVID crisis content conundrum. What should you do about your current online and on-air content during COVID to make sure you're staying relevant, taking advantage of some of the trends? And last and most importantly, we hope we are able to share some really good ideas on how you can re-energize your revenue. Obviously, everybody's taking a bit of a beating over the last few months. A lot of our partners have expressed, their ups and downs, and we really sympathize with all of you. And we're certainly here to help both our partners and potential partners and just industry friends get through this. We do believe that there is light at the end of the tunnel. Obviously I'm the internal optimist, but I definitely hope everybody else is sort of staying positive as well, because what else are you going to do? So we are in unprecedented times, and that word is just driving me crazy because everybody I've spoken to is saying unprecedented. I've said it in previous webinars, when I speak to my friends, my family, even still 10 weeks in, however many weeks, God only knows now. It's just a miraculous time. We are suffering from originally the shock of the virus and the impact it's had to our daily lives. Hopefully now there's some good news. We're starting to come out of that global supply chain shock. Things are starting to open up. Again, on the more positive note, the demand shock is starting to subside as we open up things, particularly in the US, a little bit slower in Canada, a little bit slower in some states as well, depending on the geographic area. But at least we're starting to hear and talk about it either in our own geographic and regional environments, or, we're hearing of it on a wide scale, but, with businesses opening up. So that demand shock is slowly starting to subside. But the policy shock is really what we really need to address today. And that is really, how is the world going to change, and what is it going to look like from a policy perspective, from a human behavior perspective? And that is still probably the most unknown here. What we do in this unprecedented time have some sense, and we're starting to maybe move past the first three sort of shocks. Let's get into some of the ugly. Well, we know that the U.S. toll is very terrible news, and with almost 1.7 million cases, or over 1.7 million cases, and almost 100,000, or maybe just surpassing 100,000 deaths over either this week. Obviously terrible news, and of course we're wishing all of you safe, and your families and your businesses a lot of safety and a strong recovery. The economic impact, I mean, not since the Great Depression has there been this many people losing their jobs. The unemployment rate is just less than 15%. Some economists are expecting it to potentially surpass the 20% mark this summer. The stock market has been extremely volatile, a little bit of improvement over the last few days and maybe over the last few weeks, sort of in the month of May, but still overall down and incredibly volatile. And the mandated closures and lockdowns have just devastated some industries, have devastated some local economies. Depending on where you are, it has just been a devastating time economically. GDP, gross domestic product in the United States, is expected to shrink by 1%. Previously to COVID, it was expected to grow to, a really strong high. So, with what we had as a really strong economy, we've seen that go by the wayside. Now let's focus on some of the bad. It seems that there is an unbelievable amount of information and misinformation, and that is just being victims of the world we live in with, how much access we have to information, whether we're looking at our tablet, phone, laptop, or all three at once. It is just crazy how much information, and it makes it very hard to make sense of what's happening in the world. What is right? What is wrong? Really, it's just very hard to navigate this. And I think we're just at the point, however many weeks in we are, 9, 10, 8, whatever that number is, it's a lot. The majority of people, I think, and I can speak personally, we just need breaks from the news about coronavirus and just need to see some light at the end of the tunnel. The reality is the amount of misinformation that's being spread to confuse us further is just massive, whether it's on social media or whether it's coming through, different politicized news bureaus and things like that. The confusion it creates is just, it's not giving us any confidence, and it's not really giving us the information we feel we need to make the best decisions for us personally, for our families, and most importantly for our businesses. Adjusting to the new normal sucks. I'm just going to say it. I mean, listen, I have been homeschooling in conjunction with my wife, my kids. I think teachers should make $10 million a year after dealing with my kids for about 2 hours. And, just having to do work and figure out how to balance managing a home life, working from home, constantly trying to keep my kids from being unafraid, from managing personal anxieties, to teaching my parents how to use Zoom, which is almost as bad as teaching my children, lining up for groceries, wearing masks and smelling our own breath. It's all just a lot. And I made a lot of jokes in there, but really it is sort of overwhelming, and it's got to be anxiety inducing for a ton of people, including our children and our elderly. We haven't been able to see my parents in a long time, as I'm sure many of you haven't, just to protect them. And just being in lockdown for 7 to 8 last weeks, as we start to open up a little bit, that's not a normal thing for the human psyche. There is good news, though. Both the Canadian and the US government have announced really strong stimulus packages as well. It seems like there's going to be continued there. There's obviously a lot of information, and again, back to that misinformation as to how quickly that's rolling in. But, recently, the House, Congress passed, a bill to try to stimulate for small and medium businesses, included in the small and medium business loan. So I hope a lot of our friends in the United States are able to take advantage of that, and that money starts to flow in. In Canada, I can speak that it has been pretty positive overall. I think there's a pretty strong general consensus that cash is flowing and getting into the hands. But again, how long is that going to last, and how much can the government really afford before it is impacted? regardless, the news is good, with over $3 trillion being invested from the US government, and about 87 billion in Canada. It's been it's at least a little bit of positivity that the governments are stepping up and hopefully getting that cash flowing. There is also some good models out there for what you should be doing and what, as organizations, you need to think and what you can do to improve your position. And I showed this slide in a previous webinar, and I still think it's a very strong, a really strong visual. We're sort of in the blue square now, where we're turning back. We're trying to get our businesses to turn back to the pre-COVID situation as fast as possible. We're starting to understand the effects of what COVID has, both in the past and what we can start to look in the future. And this webinar will cover a lot of what we think is coming clearer in the future. And we are starting to reimagine what that new normal is. Next stage, we'll be able to reform how we actually do things and how we actually capitalize, or how we actually react to these changes and these reimaginations. So I think that this is a really good model here for those that are sort of maybe still in stage 1 or 2 and are still sort of freaking out and aren't able to see the forest through the trees, because yeah, that's really hard. That's not a criticism, but hopefully a lot of you are in that 3-4 stage where you're starting to get back to business and starting to see a little bit of your advertisement revenue come back, if it's not immediate, at least bookings for the summer and into the fall, and starting to reimagine what you have to do. And we'll talk a lot about that return and that reimagination section in this webinar. Some other great news is that radio has really been a strong and trusted source of information and community connection in any times of heightened uncertainty and disrupted routines. And radio, well, it is taking a beating on the financial side. There's an inverse relationship to the audience and engagement side of things, where a lot of radio broadcasts are seeing increased time spent listening, increases in web traffic. I know on the SoCast platform, across as an aggregate of all of our partners, we've seen upwards of a 70% increase at the peak of web traffic across that. Now, that's not to say that is impacting all formats. There are certain formats that are getting hit harder, and there are certain formats that are certainly thriving when it comes to that web traffic and time spent listening, and we'll review some of those. Other good news is 83% of American adults reported spending the same or even more time with radio as a result of COVID. This has been a positive, but again, there's that inverse relationship that you're having to work harder to sort of serve all of your listeners while not generating the same amount of revenue. Many of you had to furlough or lay off workers, or just shrink your expenses, of course, of course, that's expected, but obviously still you have to serve your listeners, and that challenge still remains. The good news, again, is that 3 out of 4 radio formats are having net positive time spent listening. We'll cover that off a little bit more. And again, I think people are still remaining pretty optimistic that things are going to end, that we are getting near some sense of understanding of when that will be. I think we have a sense that maybe there will be a second wave, but hopefully we'll be able to handle that a little bit better and differently based upon our experience, because again, this is unprecedented time. But we do think that things will be differently, and that's what the average radio listener feels, that things will change. And again, we're going to cover a lot of that today. So that's sort of my opening. I'm setting the table, as I like to say, for the remainder of the content in this webinar. And the first thing I think that you as radio broadcasters, in order to thrive in the post-COVID world, have to embrace the work from home attitude, the work from home reality. And it really will impact you in 2 ways, and we'll talk about those. But the reality is that more people are working from home. Almost 40% are working from home. A lot of people have lost their jobs and are not working at all, so they are at home just by being locked down. So that's almost 60% of our audiences. Some people were just working at home from the beginning. So almost 70% of people are working from home, and the perception is that this is not going to change after COVID. It may go back by 10% or so, but there is this new reality that working from home, and we're hearing it from big tech companies like Twitter and Facebook, about allowing people to start working from home because they're finding efficiency is not dropping. They're able to save a great deal of money in office space. I can tell you the SOCAS team was well prepared to work from home, and we've been doing that since middle of March now. So over 2 months now, and our productivity is not down. Our business is still sort of in a really good position, and we're realizing, and I think a lot of people are realizing and questioning whether we need giant office towers and giant office space, and people are sort of wanting, preferring the working from home and the lifestyle change. So a lot of people aren't going to go back to that just by the drive of businesses making that happen. And I think for your listeners, you need to prepare for it, but also from your own internal ways, just to keep your own workers safe. Yes, you're an essential service. Yes, you all have to go into your stations, I'm sure, but still, we also know that a lot of our partners have mandated that their staff work from home or have split shifts and things like that, whether it's a partial work from home or a full work from home scenario, and you need to be equipped to do that. So you need to ask yourselves, does your team have the tools it needs to work from home? And there are a few things that you can really checkbox yourself to make sure that you are prepared for this if this does continue on, or you are able to shrink down some office space strategically. First and foremost, having a cloud-based digital toolkit is essential. You'll hear the term SaaS, software as a service. This means you can log on from any internet connection on any computer, laptop, mobile phone to manage your to really manage all of your technology. And most radio operators are prepared to do this. But being able to manage your web, your social, your mobile apps remotely is a key thing to be able to do during this time, in the event that we have, another spike in COVID cases in the fall until a vaccine is found and we can really get out of this. I think most people feel that we are probably anywhere from 1 to 2 years away from really being able to get back to any sense of normalcy. You need to make sure that your digital assets are integrated and optimized for workflow. And the benefit of this is that you only have one sign-on. So your teams, whether it's your social media managers, your digital managers, your programmers, etc., they should only have to have one or a few, just a very few. They shouldn't have to have 4 or 5 sign-ons to manage all of your digital. The fewer they have, the more efficient the workflow. And it also needs to be very easy for your teams to use, as they don't have the ability to collaborate face-to-face as much. And they need to have a platform that makes it easy to be flexible, creative, and innovative, makes it easy to control your digital properties and make updates and publish content easily. And of course, you want a platform that is stable and regularly updated. If you're doing your own hosting, obviously that can be a little bit of a risk for you. Looking for companies that manage your hosting, like SOCAS, etc., is probably a wise idea, so you can focus more on the day-to-day business and get away from managing the costs and just the implications of managing, technology. There are 6 benefits that I've outlined for an integrated SaaS, again, software as a service solution. It offers flexibility to meet work from home needs for you and your team, again, whether that's partial or full. You can manage all of your digital from one dashboard and one login. You can increase collaboration with that single platform and reduce cross-department friction. You can make it much easier and have a simplified workflow to have cross-content publishing across your stations and omni-channel content production and publication, meaning make it easy for your teams to publish content out to social media, publish out to your websites, publish out to your mobile apps, all from one back end that can be accessed anywhere. And it will provide for a uniform brand experience and audience user experience that will keep your audience coming back. And lastly, from a revenue standpoint, just being able to upload ads into one system and package and serve a consistent ad inventory options for your advertisers will be critical. So, obviously, we're hosting this, and I would be remiss if I didn't stress that SoCast really is an excellent, for this time frame, SaaS-based and integrated content management system and revenue toolkit for you, your programming team, your digital teams, and for your sales teams to manage all of their website content, all of their mobile apps. We can do Alexa voice skills. We offer digital advertising solutions, which we'll touch on in a little bit. And of course, we can help consult and get you set up so your team has the ability to work from home. Effectively, your sales and your audience platforms should work together so everybody can work in conjunction and collaboration with each other to make sure that you have a single platform that can help drive increased average quarterly hour listening, time spent listening, and increased revenue. And the SoCast platform can be that. Again, I hate to get too advertorial on these, but again, SoCast has just really showcased itself as an excellent tool for radio broadcasters during these, again, unprecedented times. I really have to stop saying that. More and more people are working from home. The other group you have to think of is not yourselves and your workers, but also your audience. And it seems as if with that statistic that I showed a few slides back, that as more and more people begin to work from home for, either just the sort of short term till maybe the end of the year, or beyond that with the new normal, if that does become the new normal, as I suspect it will, your messaging really has to change from, listen at work to listen while you work. And it really may change the way you program your days from, really focusing on morning drive. Less people are focusing on driving in the mornings and coming home afternoons. Maybe there's a bit of a time shift that you need to consider, and you should be observing what your listening patterns are across the board to see if a change, in timing for your days. People will be waking up later because they don't need to go to the office and things like that. They don't need to drive or get on subways or, take local transit, etc. So definitely changing the way you think about engaging with your audience and how you program your days will be critical. Some other great news is that listening to streams on the computer, because really nobody has a computer in their home anymore, has really significantly increased during COVID. It's now 60% higher than COVID. And as a result, listeners are really looking to you. As I referenced earlier, people are spending more time listening to you because radio really is comfort food. It really is, the means for which people get their local contextual content on air and now online through mobile, through their laptops, through smart speakers. While people are spending less time in the car, it's good to hear that there has not been an equal drop in overall radio listening. So that is really a positive thing. And I think, there's been some other positives. Some demographic groups that traditionally didn't listen to radio or were not strong or long-term radio listeners have begun listening to radio more and more. Millennials and Gen X have both expressed in research that they are spending more time listening to radio. That is a real positive. And the question becomes, how do you retain some degree of these listeners as we go back to this new normal? But it is good to see. Another point to make here, by the way, is the buying behavior. And we'll talk more about that later on in the webinar. But right now I want to focus on how, a new demographic of listener has started to or re-engaged with radio. And that is excellent news for you. So what does that mean? You must be streaming. We still are amazed at how many times we hear that people, radio broadcasters, are not streaming their signal due to the costs or anything like that, but people are no longer driving their cars. For how long that is, again, my best guess is that that is going to drop for the extended period of the next couple years. I'm no expert, but that's everything I've read. And again, as the work from home, it is going to be more important that you allow your radio stations to stream both on web, on app, and of course, you can definitely get into smart speakers, which we'll talk about. Broadcasters need to offer a competitive, good-sounding stream available on every device, including mobile phones, tablets, smart speakers, internet TVs, and wireless speaker systems. And again, this is very important, particularly for the younger generation, and to retain that audience. To give you some ideas as what website must-haves you should definitely be thinking of while you evaluate, and you're sort of updating those. You want to make sure you make your navigation easy, clear. It's easy to find stuff on your website. Of course, easy to listen. I mean, that just goes without saying in this day and age. You want your websites to be secure and mobile responsive. Again, for the younger demographic who does look at these things and who is searching for content online right now, you need for best-in-class search engine optimization. You need to have secure and mobile responsive websites, and you want your websites to be mobile responsive, as still the younger millennial and Gen X generations are consuming on mobile. Clear branding, clear format, clear location, always a good thing to have. Calls to action should be obvious. That big call to action to listen live, essential. Advertise with us. That should definitely be present and predominant on everybody's websites, especially as we continue to start to see some advertisers come back and the economy start to open up. You should be there as their omni-channel advertising expert. And again, try to publish original content with rich media rather than just pulling in RSS feeds. Make your own as best you can, especially around the COVID crisis, because people are looking to you to be that local hub, and businesses are looking at you to promote in unique ways these days as they continue to navigate and evolve after the COVID crisis as to how consumers are going to interact with them. Lastly, make sure on your website you're promoting your other digital channels. Cross-promote your mobile app, cross-promote your smart speakers, Alexa streams. Very critical that people know that they can find you on multiple channels. We've talked a little bit about smart speakers, and again, compared to before the COVID outbreak, people are listening to their smart speakers more and more because radios are no longer sort of present in the house in the traditional format. Smart speakers have been replacing those, and people are spending more time listening to their smart speakers across all age demographics. And it's critical to know that AM/FM listening is really a core reason. It is a large percentage of why people actually listen to smart speakers. I also guarantee that within the play music section, which is the most commonly common reason for people to listen to smart speakers, there's probably some people who didn't include AM/FM listening and just answered the play music. So there's probably an increase above and beyond what you see around that blue box for listen to AM/FM radio stations. But smart speakers are allowing people who have changed their routines, who are starting to work from home, who may not be going back to work, or who may be out of work. It's still giving them the opportunity to find out what their local news is as they're not driving as frequently. So let's talk a little bit, now that you have the tools, let's talk about what's critical from a content perspective, the COVID content conundrum, if you will. Content is still king, and you need to be thinking about what's going on with respect to that. So again, good news that a number of formats have seen good gains in the time spent listening on air, online, etc. News talk, obviously, and it makes sense, has grown significantly by 24%. The classic rock format has seen strong gains, and we suspect that this is probably because of changing listening behaviors. People not at work. Most workplaces will automatically stream in either a hot AC or a pop CHR, and this means that more people are able to go back to what they're familiar with, what's nostalgic to them, what they're comfortable with. So that is a great opportunity. Countries held the ratings through the pandemic, and hot AC, pop CHR, and sports talk have really taken a beating. Sports for the obvious reasons. Hot AC and pop CHR, just just as people aren't able to, or musicians are not adding new streaming content, those areas have really seen a drop, and hot AC obviously not being listened to in the workplace has likely had an impact. Some great data from New Voodoo's nationwide survey. They found that 60% of music station listeners want at least hourly COVID-related updates. Obviously, we feel and want to recommend that content should be updated and fresh and relevant, or else, if it's just repetitive, you definitely want to be, you will definitely drive some tune-outs. News about hotspots, status of reopenings, breakthrough updates around around testing or cures or vaccines seem to be the hot topic that people are really looking for. People are also really looking to hear uplifting, positive music. I think that makes sense just given the downtime. Commercial-free music seems to be in high demand, with 56% of respondents to the survey saying that is something they want. It's a great opportunity for radio to sort of counteract the pure plays with commercial-free music. Unfortunately, with inventory sell-through rates down, you do have that ability, and you can always go back to adding more advertisement once those advertisers come back. But commercial-free music is definitely in high demand from an audio perspective. And contests still seem to be resonating with the audiences, as long as it's tactful and not inappropriate, and we'll talk more about that in a minute. People still want to be winning things, and it seems like predominantly given just the economic situation, it's focused very much on cash giveaways and those type of things, or things that can offset cash. Even if it's not cash, it could be gift certificates, it could be home makeovers and supplies around things that people need. I thought that this was a really great comment from PJ Kling, that any contesting you should do right now should be much more practical than experiential. It's not about making people feel like a rock star and sending them to a concert on a private jet and things like that. Not that all you small markets are doing that, but even just those things, small vacations, things like that. It's about helping them make rent this month. So, I think that you can drive listener engagement, and I do think that there is an opportunity for local businesses to sponsor these contests, to keep people engaged with them, during what it has been, a terrible economic toll. Some additional fresh content ideas. Not all sports is gone. I mean, esports is still thriving because you can do it online. And, this is something I think I talked about at the end of in a webinar at the end of 2019, just what a big content idea this is. And especially, again, given that you have a younger demographic listening to some of your stations, probably not for the first time, but spending more time doing that, esports is certainly something that may resonate very effectively with them. It's an over $1 billion industry. It has not seen a huge decline, except with its with sort of its gate revenue, but still online it can generate a lot through Twitch. It really applies to Gen Z and Gen Y millennials, and there is a ton of content you can do around it. You could probably find some gamers within your local communities who will blog about it, do video content, and run some remote on esports events that would help continue to grow your brand, bring back a cool cachet to it, and generate some potential sponsorship opportunities once that economic opportunity opens up. Certainly e-commerce as well, selling merch and things like that for them as well. You may have heard that it's an election year in the United States, and that is going to be a huge driver of content. Some of these examples are Canadian based, but again, we recommend really grasping onto that and really taking advantage of the election coverage that you can do to drive traffic with live election coverage and build opinion, build blogs and news around that with updates and polls, trying to get people to share their thoughts online. I understand that it's a very polarized world we live in, but certainly there is an opportunity to, engage with your audience and to sort of be that central local media hub for all things related to election coverage. And of course, there is the revenue opportunity as well with display inventory and on-air inventory that the candidates will be spending. They're expecting that to be, with people at home more and more, they're expecting that to be one area of significant growth for radio. But certainly there is lots of opportunity for you to take advantage of the upcoming US elections in November. Another thing I've always pushed, and for those of you that have seen it before or who are already doing it, I can't emphasize enough that I think that this is such an amazing idea. And as radio broadcasters, you have an opportunity to build satellite brands to your main radio brands. Things like All Mom Does out of Seattle, which is a, obviously a mom-heavy blogging site for all things mom, whether it's, back to school things, keeping your kids safe, what you're telling your kids. I think especially at this time, moms are looking for things to do with their kids. Moms are looking for educational support. It doesn't have to be an All Mom Does thing. These are simply example. Another successful example prior to the COVID crisis was I-70 Sports from our friends at Vandalia Radio in Illinois. They spun off a local, high school and varsity level, as well as some professional level and university level content around their local sports to help promote that. And it was able to drive some revenue. So even though it may not be doing that as effectively today, certainly preparing for the reopening of sports and high schools in the fall, now is the time to start thinking about those sites. As I said, yesterday was December, now it's May. September, October are really going to creep up on us. And even if it does, the school doesn't get back till January, these are things you should be thinking about strategically. So taking the opportunity to evaluate what satellite brands based upon your audience demographics would resonate with your audience. Is it an esports site? Is it a mom-based site? Who are the listeners and what are the demographics of your areas, so you can target specific audience segments and develop spin-off sites, or satellite brands as I call them, to help capture that. And when advertisers are ready to come back and start spending, you'll have more inventory to sell them than you do with just your on-air and traditional on and web inventory. I think another content thing is that radio is really relied on, especially during COVID. It has really proven to be a valuable information source, telling people what's open, how to shop, where can they get curbside pickup and takeout, what restaurants are open for those type of things. And this, obviously the data right here shows that a strong majority are showing that they do rely on radio for that information. So, having local business directories and COVID info at this time are very important. What's opening? Who's still offering curbside delivery? Are there still any cancellations or businesses that are still not opening or delayed in opening or have changed their business model from going, from bricks and mortar to online? And even just supporting all of the local businesses in your community down the road when advertising does come back and the economy gets back to any sense of reset. Certainly by doing goodwill at this time is likely and can definitely have benefits down the line when people do have the money to start advertising. So making sure you're offering local business directories and COVID info, related info is obviously essential. Now let's talk about re-energizing your revenue now that you have some great content and you have all the tools you need. Again, we subscribe still very heavily to our thesis and our theory that for radio broadcasters to thrive, regardless of COVID, it is going to have to be a mix of traditional and digital to drive revenue growth when as things open back up. And I would even go so far as to say that digital is going to be a significant opportunity for you as radio broadcasters and salespeople after this crisis sort of subsides, or just as we sort of see the new world order. So the outlook, is not good. I mean, there's no way to sugarcoat it. It has been obviously devastating for some of you, for probably all of you to some degree. We've heard a lot of our partners have been down significantly. We've heard some that haven't been down as significantly, and we're thrilled to hear those. But really, everybody has been impacted in the radio broadcast business. There's no question about it. And again, we hope it's a speedy return and that you're all able to sort of weather the storm. But there is some growing confidence now. We are starting to hear some news stories of groups that are starting to see a little bit of a turn in their revenues, or at least some future bookings that should drive some revenues. So that is some good news. And it looks like that hopefully all of you will start to see that slow turn. And again, I don't want to sound over optimistic or sugarcoat it by any means, but hopefully by the summer months, there will be some positive movement for the second half of the year, whether it's Q3 or Q4. I would say that most broadcasters aren't going to be able to see, anything back to a sense of normalcy likely till 2021. And again, that's just me being a realist and not sugarcoating it, not a pessimist at all. But we do think that there should be some return from advertisers coming over the summer months, and hopefully we're sticking through till Q3 and Q4. This poll actually just came out from Inside Radio today, this morning. I added it to my presentation because I thought it was relevant. 48% of respondents to this poll said they are starting to see a resurgence in booking. I would say that's cautious optimism. Again, the other half, basically equal. I haven't seen any turnaround. So again, I see both sides of the coin. But I do think, certainly had we asked this question 4 weeks ago, we would see a completely different answer, and it would be much higher, 80%, 90% not seeing any turnaround yet, and very limited seeing any return. So again, hopefully that curve is slowly starting to creep up on us. And again, it's essential that you understand that radio in today's day and age is an omni-channel advertising medium. It isn't just about traditional spots anymore. Traditional spots are one key and critical aspect of advertising and marketing solutions that you should be offering your advertiser, because it does drive awareness and it does drive search significantly. And but really what it comes down to is it's cross-channel ad campaigns, omni-channel ad campaigns that drive higher brand recognitions and ultimately conversion. So the more owned and operated inventory and targeted display programmatic capabilities you can offer, you will be able to sell a very holistic advertising and marketing solution to your advertisers when this crisis sort of begins to subside. Again, hopefully we're hitting a little bit of that Canadian hockey stick, that where you'll start to see that 48% continually creep up month after month that we saw in the previous slide. Another thing to note is purchasing behaviors have changed, and I would venture to say that this is likely for the foreseeable future and possibly long haul. Obviously, e-commerce was always on the rise and digital spending was on the rise, but now this crisis has seemed to drive that into super like hyperdrive. So people are buying more and more online because they're at home and they can't go and they don't want to wait in lineups outside stores. So businesses are looking to really look to promote their e-commerce opportunity. And about 2/3 of small and medium businesses in the United States said they will rely on e-commerce far more after the COVID pandemic. So what does that mean for you? Well, it means that you should all be preparing to offer more than just your traditional on-air. You should be preparing yourselves to offer digital advertising and marketing solutions above and beyond to complement your traditional advertising as well. I thought that these were 3 amazing sales support stats that your sales teams can use. And again, I just want to say that everybody will be entitled to get this presentation from me, no problem. You'll just email me at the end or email Shay right now and say you want it, but we obviously would love to send it to all of you. But the IAB said that 38% of advertisers are increasing their investment in audience targeting as an adjustment to the coronavirus outbreak. We're going to talk about that more in a couple minutes. But having digital and programmatic ad solutions is going to be critical to attracting new advertisers after this crisis, based upon the fact that they're going to be relying so much more on e-commerce. 92% of consumers think brands should continue advertising during the crisis. I think there are some segments that absolutely should be advertising during the crisis, and certainly, you know, any industries where, you know, one or multiple advertisers within a specific segment have decreased their ad spends, this should definitely be go after the competitors, because they are very likely to be, you know, wanting to increase. You know, I think it was like after the .com bubble burst and McDonald's stopped advertising, it was like Wendy's and Kentucky Fried Chicken went crazy with advertising, and they saw massive upticks in their business. And a last one, firms that maintain or increase advertising average significantly higher sales growth during and after a recession than those that eliminate or decrease advertising. So while it's hard and you may have to maybe make some concessions to your advertisers to meet their budgets during this time and to help grow after, I think it's critical that you encourage your advertisers to not just assume that there isn't a benefit to advertising during this crisis, that in order to thrive after this crisis, they are going to need to have good advertising. And again, you as a marketing solution, an omni-channel marketing solution with both traditional and digital capabilities, need to be able to extend those opportunities. So prepare to sell beyond radio. I think programmatic is going to be key to thriving post-COVID. You need to be able to have be able to sell impression-based campaigns to help your advertisers target their audience, whether it's using geo-targeting, targeted display, retargeting, contextual targeting, conquesting. And again, for those of you who don't know exactly what all these are, we can help you with that. SOCAS can help you with that. And again, we have a webinar coming up on June 8th that will be able to teach you more and more about this stuff. But I'm sure the majority of you are familiar with these tactics to help you. And these are going to be essential to thrive in the post-COVID world. Geofencing is an easy one to understand. What it means is you're simply applying a radius around a specific geographic location. So when people enter that radius or that geographic area, they are more likely to be served ads on your websites and on the websites they visit to target their specific buyer or audience. And then you can retarget them. And that means that after they leave that geo-fenced area, you can continue to hit them with those advertisements if they engaged with it. Adding a geofence around locations enables your advertisers to expand their audience and include everyone who lives within a specific radius. Targeting people who live near their locations allows them to find an audience who is likely to stay close to home. So the power of geofencing and the group and some of the, you know, the industries or advertisers that are thriving are grocery stores, home improvement and hardware stores. It's a great idea to consider, you know, as people start to get back outside and things open up a little bit, target specific walking trails and parks and beaches and things like that. Pet supply stores, gas stations and liquor stores, and, you know, even things like U-Haul or car rentals or truck rentals and things like that. Target them for new household products, furnitures, dishwashers, appliances, lawn, because maybe they're moving. So again, that is the power of programmatic and geofencing. You can actually target specific advertisers, say we're going to geofence or geofence a specific location such as these, so we can get people who would be interested in your products to engage with your advertisements. And because e-commerce is so going to increase so much, they'll be clicking on your ads if there's a strong call to action. One great campaign we ran as a sort of a case study of success, a success story, was with one of our partners in Pittsburgh. They ran an ad campaign for a local grocer, and they generated significant improvement in promoting their curbside pickup and free pickup. It was a huge success. And again, this was an omni-channel campaign where they were able to deliver spots, so-called dots, that's sort of traditional display inventory on your owned and operated websites, as well as a programmatic ad solution to drive these results. And given COVID, they were able to sort of thrive a little bit because they were able to deliver this across a wide variety of mediums. Some other segments you can focus on, drugstores, pest control, insurance, home services, hardware, really anything do it yourself, pet supplies, grocery and health and wellness, and financial services seem to be really thriving during this time. Some losers are obviously concert venues, amusement parks, sports and recreation, travel, event venues, and retail. Certainly, we hope that all of those will come back. Some good news out of some recent articles I've read is that automotive is starting to see a small return and is starting to pivot as you know, there's a new buying process, but really creating awareness around that so people are starting to sort of open up and figure that they're going to need cars eventually. Probably the major hit automotive dealers took in March, April, and into May. Eventually, we'll have to have some recovery as people have to get out of their old cars and into new ones. You know, being able to offer a comprehensive ad solution to your automotive partners is probably a great opportunity. As behaviors shift due to COVID-19, advertisers will need to enhance their broadcast radio activity to promote their online services. Radio increases awareness, drives traffic, and influences behavior during good and difficult times, connecting consumers to brands. So just something for you to take away. I'd probably put this in my little toolkit as a salesperson if I was selling for one of you out there. And I think it's critical that your advertisers understand that there is a need to continue and that radio is an amazing medium to hit their audiences across a variety of different platforms. And you should be able to sell a wide variety of inventory that's digital. You know, everything from the owned and operated inventory on your website to promotions and contests, mobile app and websites. You also should be able to do things, you know, look into doing SEO and SEM and email and, you know, video for your partners. Look into doing programmatic, and those will be key things to help you thrive in the post-COVID digital world. I mean, everyone knows a guy who knows a guy who knows a guy who has a programmatic partner. And this is something I've shared before, but it's a great 8-point checklist for when you're selecting a programmatic partner. You want to look at all of these things, from how they price and how their fees are structured, and if there's any hidden fees, if there's monthly retainers and what sort of minimums, and what sort of results they're going to get you, because it's great to be able to check the box, but in order to really deliver great return business and retention from your advertisers to come back and spend with you, it's going to be a very competitive environment. So you want to deliver high value and great results. Fraud is also a major component for something to ask any potential partner you're talking to about programmatic. Fraud is a big problem with click farms and things like that, artificially inflating clicks and all of that. So you want to make sure that they have a technology that helps mitigate that. And what sort of support and tools and sales enablement do they offer you to make it easy for your team, to train your team to go out and sell these so they can hit the ground running and actually be effective? Because this is obviously new for a lot of people in the radio sales world, but obviously, hopefully we've expressed how essential it is for the future for you to thrive post-COVID. You definitely want a partner that will invest some time training you. You want to be able to prepare your team, train them, set goals, build a media kit that offers comprehensive, both traditional and digital ad solutions, create really compelling promotions and packages that are easy for both your sales team and your advertisers, and you want to get them out there pitching and selling this with great sales enablement tools, case studies, nice looking proposals that explain the whole value of the digital and marketing solution that you are offering. And lastly, I just want to say that, hey, listen, I'm very optimistic that this is going to end. Radio is going to thrive again. This has been a terrible year for radio after what was, you know, hopefully for many a very strong year from the data we have seen. But the good news is as things reopen, radio has always been successful in helping promote openings and grand reopenings, and you should be able to benefit that if you prepare with the proper tools. Every business is going to have to reintroduce themselves and re-pivot themselves to meet the changing demands of both their audience and their consumers, as does radio. So everybody's going to sort of have to reposition themselves a little bit. And this is, we're not making something, not making light of something that is obviously a terrible tragedy across many different spectrums, but it's an opportunity to reintroduce and reframe yourselves, and for every business to do that as well. Please join us for our webinar on June 10th at 3 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Central Time to learn more about why you should switch to SoCast Ad Extension, or if you're not doing it with somebody else, why you should join our program. We have a great team who will be ready to train you on that. There are no minimums. There are no monthly minimums. There are no retainers. It is a great package, and we encourage you to join that webinar. My colleague Shay can definitely hook you up if you email her right now, or email me at Eric@SoCast Digital for details on that webinar, and I'll be happy to get them out to you because we'd love to have you join our program and help you make some money and give you the training you need. I want to thank everybody again. I'm really excited for the future, despite all the craziness that's happened in the past few months. Please email me for this presentation, email me for a free digital checklist and a content cheat sheet. For all non-SoCast clients who aren't currently a SoCast partner yet, if you sign on for our website or mobile app platform, you will be eligible for a 3-month deferral of licensing fees to help you with your cash flow. But to get your digital foundation solid, if you sign on with us before June 30th, I'd be thrilled to do a demo for each and every one of you who isn't one of our partners. For our current SoCast clients, we hope that if you're not on our SoCast Ads platform, you'll join that webinar. And of course, don't hesitate to check us out at SoCastDigital.com. Stay tuned for future webinars. We have an amazing one coming. I believe it's scheduled for June 17th. We're going to have an Ask an Expert, and we have a variety of panelists. Jeff Schmidt from the RAB will be joining us. Our friends from the Stream Guys to talk about streaming and podcasting. Our very own Steve Ulrich will be talking about user experience and how to design and manage your websites. And we'll have a social media expert on as well to help you with any social media questions. We'll be intaking those questions, and our experts will be answering them both in advance and doing live Q&A on that. So please stay tuned for that as well. Thank you so much, everybody, for your time. Stay safe, stay healthy, look after yourselves, and we'll look forward to seeing you all real soon. Thanks again.